had SOCOM trying to figure out where MARSOC would even fit into the greater Special Operations Command picture. And this was all happening while the country was at war and arguably the height of the Iraq War. That is why the early years of MARSOC were so difficult. And then came the incident that shaped MARSOC's early reputation more than anything else. The Bqua incident. So if we're going to talk about MARSOC, we really can't have a serious discussion about MARSOC's early history without talking about Afghanistan in 2007. Because in March of 2007, a Marine Special Operations Company was operating in Afghanistan when one of the convoys was attacked by a suicide vehicle-borne IED, or a VBID. So after the explosion, the Marines reported receiving small arms fires from multiple locations. They returned fire while trying to break contact and move through what they believed was a coordinated ambush. But soon after the engagement, allegations emerged that civilians had been killed. The Afghan government had already condemned the incident. International media picked it up immediately. It became a huge story. Political pressure came down fast. And for a brand new Special Operations Command just trying to prove itself, this was devastating. That Marine company was pulled from Afghanistan. Their commander was relieved. Their entire deployment became a controversy. For years, this incident shaped how people viewed MARSOC. I was actually in Iraq when this happened, and we all viewed that one of MARSOC's first mission, and they already got fired.
Strength isn't built in comfort. It's built through repetition, through discipline, through showing up when it would be easier not to. For me, training has always been about pushing limits, becoming stronger, faster, and more capable every single day. But the gear you wear matters. Barbell Apparel was built for athletes who move, who train, who refuse to compromise between performance and style. Clothes that move with you, built for strength, built for durability, and built for the grind. Whether it's the gym, the track, or the everyday mission, train hard, move freely, live disciplined. Barbell Apparel. Use code Stoic Viking 25 and step into the gear that's built for you, how you actually train.
And at the time, because of the information that we had at the time, many assumed that the Marines had acted recklessly. But as later investigations would develop, the picture, like always, became more complicated. The initial versions of the event did not tell the whole story. Later investigations found that Marines had, in fact, been hit by a suicide bomber and had come under enemy fire. And then even some of the most serious accusations that dominated the early reporting at the time were then ultimately not even substantiated. The Marines were actually later cleared of criminal wrongdoing, because anytime a civilian has been harmed, it definitely deserves a real investigation. But the Bqua incident is also a reminder of something every military professional should truly understand. The first version of events in combat is almost never the final version. Whether we're talking about Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, or any future conflict, initial reports are often incomplete. Information is almost always fragmented, especially at the beginning. Eyewitness accounts should always be taken with a grain of salt because they typically conflict with one another. Intelligence is still being collected at that point. Leaders are forced to make decisions in an environment where they rarely have the full picture or even all of the information yet. But unfortunately, this is the reality of war. And as more evidence is gathered, as forensic analysis is completed, and as intelligence reporting eventually matures, and as investigators interview everyone involved, our understanding of what actually happens often changes. And that is why it's important that professional militaries always conduct thorough investigations instead of just relying on the first headlines or the first reports coming out of the battlefield. And this is not just a lesson for professional militaries. This is a lesson for everybody, because even civilians, when dealing any type of media, this happens all the time. We deal with this on a day-to-day basis as just as civilians. But this does not mean incidents should not be investigated. They absolutely should. Professional organizations have a responsibility to investigate allegations thoroughly, especially when civilians may have been harmed. But it also means that we have to resist the temptation to rush to judgment before all the facts are known. And we talk about this every single day on this channel. Wait for the information to come out. Don't jump to conclusions. Intellectuals and good leaders understand that accountability and due process go hand in hand. They demand the truth wherever it leads, but they do not confuse speed with accuracy. The Bqua incident is a reminder that combat is chaotic information evolves, and history is often way more complicated than the first story that ever gets told. But for MARSOC, the damage was already done. Regardless of what later investigations concluded, the organization's first major combat deployment had become associated with controversy. So now, MARSOC had another challenge. They were not just building a new special operations force, they also had to rebuild trust, credibility, and even confidence. And over time, that's exactly what they did. Afghanistan and Iraq became MARSOC's proving grounds, and every deployment taught lessons. Selection improved, training improved, mission planning improved, intelligence capabilities were improved, relationships across all of SOCOM were improved. Both leadership and operators would mature. The organization started to develop its own culture, and eventually MARSOC became more than just this new experiment. It became a real special operations command with its own identity, and that identity became even stronger when the Marine Corps restored the Raider name.